From ABC News, Ryan Wedding, former Olympian turned FBI most wanted fugitive, was arrested. Ryan Wedding, the former Olympic snowboarder investigators said has been leading a major drug ring, has been arrested, U.S. officials announced on Friday. The 44-year-old Canadian was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list in connection with the indictments that allege he's responsible for tracking multi-ton quantities of cocaine from Colombia to Canada and connected with several murders for hire in Canada and Mexico. At my direction, Department of Justice agents and FBI have apprehended yet another member of the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, Ryan Wedding, the one-time Olympian snowboarder turned alleged violent cocaine king. The U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in an ex-post, Wedding was flown to the United States where he will face justice. Look, I just found out about this story. We were doing the culture war earlier. But again, is the DOJ an agency that we can rely on? It seems like they've been putting some effort into doing stuff after a year of, basically a year of false starts. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think like, unfortunately, it's just another one of those stories that Cash is not going to get credit for. It's kind of like what we saw at the NBA. Like, they do make moves, they do things. I do think a lot of people out there just want to see arrests. They want to see the people they view as enemies and their oppositions being arrested. And without that, it's like these stories go.
Right. But then as a justice maker, you can't just go off of emotions and appease people and give them the bloodthirst, So then you end up looking like the bad guy, and your mistakes get blown out of proportion and your successes go under the radar sometimes when you're doing the right thing. It's the curse. It's a curse of being a good person in life a lot of times.
Well, I mean, this guy's alleged to be a drug trafficker.
No,
so
I mean,
this isn't about vibes or anything like that. This is
right.
They have a substantial amount of evidence. I suppose
more about like if people in the Justice Department are doing what's right, and they're not going after people based on emotions. They're doing like legitimate
their job.
Work. They might end up looking like the bad guys because they're not satisfying people's bloodlust.
Are you under the impression, or is it your sense that the people in the DOJ are doing things off of emotion?
No.
Oh.
They've been really good about being like robotic about stuff.
Yeah, okay. What you're saying is they're not trying to appease their base by being emotional and just going after the people that those people want arrested.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, look, the people that most of the people, not everybody, but most of the people that that seem to be most wanted by the internet, it is really based off of emotion. They want to see their political enemies or people they deem as the bad guy. They want to see them wrapped up regardless of whether or not there's enough evidence. And look, if you're going to make the argument, well, they went after Donald Trump and there was, little evidence, or they created a situation where Donald Trump was guilty of things, or they could say that Donald Trump was guilty of things. I'm right there with you. I totally think that most of the stuff that they went after Donald Trump, probably all of the stuff that they went after Donald Trump for was fabricated or somehow engineered to make it look like it was worse than it was. Like the 34 felonies, like all that stuff was BS. They changed the laws so that way Donald Trump could be indicted on the Jean Carroll stuff. So I'm right there with you. I agree. But that doesn't mean that the right should go, or this DOJ, more to the point, should be trying to fabricate stuff to get people. I think that there's enough evidence of actual wrongdoing where they can legitimately say, look, the people that we're arresting, they're either guilty or we have enough evidence to believe they're guilty of crimes.
It's a good way to look at it. There are enough legit criminals out there. We don't need to fabricate stuff right now. There's a lot of like illegal immigration and organizations, NGOs that are tied to those people that they can pull strings on and find out, well, who paid who, and they can go to the top of the top, and then they can give it to the executive branch and be like, maybe they were Mexican cartels. You can have that aspect of it. We'll take care of the domestic aspect of it.
Well, I mean, to your point, right? Like, so there's a lot of people that want to see, Antifa wrapped up. They want to see arrests of Antifa members and stuff. And because what I'm hearing is that they're looking at RICO cases. Those kind of cases take a long time to tie together. You can't just say, "Oh, we think all these people are connected because they all wore black bloc, or they were in a member or in black bloc, or all they wore black to a protest." You actually have substantial ties to make a RICO case stick. Yeah. And the last thing the DOJ wants to do is arrest people and not have things stick, because that's not going to make anybody happy either, right? Like if they were to go and arrest a bunch of people and say, well, you guys are all Antifa, right? The DOJ doesn't follow through, or they're not able to put people in jail. the people that are up in arms right now, it'll only inflame those people. They're only going to say, well, we can't trust the government. We can't trust the judges. So now you'll end up having people you'll have more people saying that we need to go to extreme measures and we need to take things in our own hands. And that's not something we want at all.
Yeah, I find this interesting that this is like the real life Ozark. This is a regular looking dude who seemingly was, I guess a celebrity within this space. And he is a drug lord.
I know.
Like, this is crazy stuff. Now, what I also find interesting is that from the outside looking in, I would think that anyone who's an Olympian and crushing it is not going to need to move cocaine and drugs across state lines. And so I'm curious how much of this is, hey, you get all this celebrity notoriety, clout, and your lifestyle increases, and now you got to maintain this status. So then you get into shady stuff. Or if this dude was always into shady stuff and it just all amplified as he became more high profile.
I mean, I imagine the kind of person that would want to put the effort into becoming an Olympian level snowboarder, right? Like, that guy's kind of gotta be an adrenaline junkie. Mm-hmm. Is that tied to his being in the drug world, being trafficking drugs? Is he looking for that high again? Yeah. Because obviously most of your drug lords or whatever, they're motivated by money, but this guy ostensibly had a lot of fame and money before that.
You think he was really rich prior to this?
I was going to say I'd fact check that because as an Olympian,
I don't think they're
typically don't make a lot of money.
No, but I mean, I imagine he had sponsorships. He had a lot of notoriety and stuff. So I'm just thinking that again, this is just I'm just imagining this, but like, he's after the adrenaline, and a lot of people that end up in doing any kind of criminal activity, a lot of times they're after the high of getting away with it, and the money's nice, obviously, if you're moving that much cocaine, you're making a boatload of money. But like, I'm wondering, was the motivating factor the money, or was the motivating factor like, I'm beating the law, they can't catch me?
I think the adrenaline's part of it, but also, and you saw with the NBA story, it's the same thing. It's like, these people have connections. Mm-hmm. The higher you get, the more famous you become. You are connected to people with money and influence and stuff. And, you start doing a little bit here and there. You have people, the people that have the connections, they want the product. And, so to your point, Phil, I do think there's a little bit of the adrenaline, but also he's in the right place, the right time, and he knows the right people.
Do they drug test when he was in the Olympics, and how long ago did he win this gold medal? Because I'm curious if he was using coke before.
That's why he was really good.
You know what I mean? And then how long ago was this?
I'm not sure.
Medal.
That's
I don't know if there's
that's a good question.
You don't even know if he won a medal?
No, I don't think he won a medal at all. I think he just was
an Olympian.
Yeah, I can see here,
$1 billion there. CNN says the Attorney General Pam Bondi previously said Wedding's operation was responsible for more than $1 billion a year in illegal drug proceeds. Officials had believed Wedding to be somewhere in Mexico under the protection of the Sinaloa cartel. Look, $1 billion. That's a lot of money. Yeah. That'll make people do a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of libertarians out there screaming like, this is also why we just need to legalize drugs.
I mean,
more Olympians.
So
that way the Olympians can get the coke they need.
You end the black market. You destroy it like overnight. Like, that's one of those arguments. I'm not saying I'm not making this argument. I'm just saying I know there's people. This is why they make this argument. It's like, our FBI is going after people constantly, like putting their lives at risk over drugs that because they're illegal. There's this black market.
As a former libertarian, I personally don't find that argument compelling anymore. And a lot of the reason is not that the DOJ and the government doesn't spend a lot of money trying to enforce the drug laws. It's the results of having drugs very accessible. You look at places like California, basically the whole West Coast, right? Portland, Oregon, Washington State. You can see the homeless population, and you can see the absolute havoc that those drugs have wreaked on the homeless population. There's a lot of people that if they didn't have access to drugs, if they didn't have the ability to shoot up wherever they wanted, or not wherever basically wherever they want on the street, if they didn't have the ability to do that, they would be more inclined to do the things necessary to have a house, right? Like, if you can stay in Southern California, live on the streets where it's, basically always nice, you don't have to worry about getting shelter from in
The
January.
snowstorm.
Yeah, you're not going to worry about it. Like if you're in San Diego, like you get a nice jacket, and even the chilly mornings, you're fine, and you can shoot up drugs without the police coming and telling you got to move along, without having to worry about the government, trying to enforce drug laws on you. There's a lot of allure to that. There's a lot of people that are like, I will choose to do drugs. Whereas if you constantly are getting told you got to go, you can't do that here, you get arrested and thrown in jail, and you have to deal with all that stuff, that will make, that does, not just will, but that does make people decide that they don't want to live that lifestyle anymore.
Yeah, so thanks for looking that up. Yeah, 28th, placing 28th in 2002. 24th? Okay, I got 28th here. 2002, which is a long time ago. Second, I took an oceanography class when I was in high school still, and I live in San Diego. I live in North County. And one of the things the oceanography class talked about in the class was talking about, because the climate is so neutral where we live, that there has been documentation. I don't know how much of this is prevalent now, but definitely in the 90s and early 2000s, where other cities would ship us their homeless people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's funny, 24th, so he could have competed in the women's side and then been first.
Been number one.
But to Phil's point, and I have this discussion with Tate all the time because he's like the youngest curmudgeon I've ever met. But he argues the same thing. He says, if people don't have access, they won't do it.
I think that's true.
I've grown up. I grew up in Chicago. Weed was illegal, coke was illegal, all this mushrooms was illegal. Guess what the kids always had, right? And like what I've kind of seen, like since weed is like one of them where it's been legalized, I've seen people who would normally seek it out are seeking it out less because they can kind of get it anytime, and the cool factor has gone away. It's like when you tell people they can't have something, it gives it that oomph of like, oh, now I'm really going to go get it because you're telling me I can't have it. But when you tell them they can have it, it's like kind of like alcohol. It's like,
But to that point, like it is like marijuana and heroin are totally different. They have a totally different effect on your ability, on your body, on your ability to function in society. There are plenty of people out there that smoke pot that it doesn't mess up their life, right? Like I think probably the majority of people that are recreational marijuana users, they'll smoke pot and it's not a big deal. It doesn't ruin their life. But there aren't a lot of recreational heroin users, right? If you're taking fentanyl,
there was a professor that did a whole experiment out of DC that tried to prove that you can use heroin
microdose.
No. He was shooting up.
Whoa.
Yeah, and you guys could Google this on your own. But yeah, and his whole point.
I remember
was,
that guy.
Yeah, his whole point was
dreadlocks.
Yes, black dude with dreadlocks. Yeah, I am going to show that addiction is more correlated to class and environment, and so I'm going to prove to you that because I have a stable life as a professor and I have a stable income, I'm going to be a functional heroin
I would
addict.
love to follow up on this guy.
I don't want to remember what happened.
Oh God, we gotta look this
Dr.
up.
Michael. What was that guy's name? We'll figure it out.
No,
I'm
it's
gonna look for this guy.
it's a good question because it's like it's one of those things where it's like the chicken or the egg. Is it people are seeking it out because it is illegal? Like this guy's whole billion-dollar business wouldn't exist if it was
legal. Yeah,
right.
I think I used to hold more of a libertarian view on this, so I understand what you're saying. I think as I became a father, I'm a father of 3 now. I absolutely want more friction for vices and then less friction for vices, and I think that to me just makes more sense.
Now, I'm going to challenge you, Ruslan. Like when you tell your kids they can't do something, what do they want to do?
My kids love Jesus and are really good kids, so they usually listen to their father.
I think if the kids trust the parents, because the parents create a really comfortable and warm and loving environment, they'll listen to them. Because I was told don't smoke pot or drink alcohol.
And
I
now
did the
look at
different,
you.
but I didn't do it until I was 23. I didn't want to do it. I knew it was poisonous, and I thought it was. Problem is when you start to learn about what drug, it comes from the word meaning dried herb. Basically, it's such a vague term for thousands and tens of thousands of chemicals, and it's the hyper addictive ones that you don't want to make legal because you just get a little taste, and then it's like you're thinking about it and like that is crazy dangerous, especially for like people other than the Carl Hart, the doctor that you were talking about earlier, Carl Hart, who wants to.
Well, I would say, like alcohol is like one of those things, especially coming from the Midwest. Alcohol is like a big thing out there, and we have a law that says you can't drink it unless you're 21, right? And what happens to a lot of kids when they get into college? They end up drinking a ton because their parents have told them they can't have it. You can't have it. They get into college where there's access to it, and then they overdose. They like literally die from alcohol.
I think the second time I drank,
I was gonna say, but Europe treats it differently, where Europe's like, hey, they're drinking at 14, 15. The parents are saying, hey, this is how you consume this. This is like, how you should do it. So by the time they get, to adulthood, they're not like craving it, you know what I mean? And it's not like this cool thing anymore because they were introduced to it. So there is that argument of like, hey, sometimes you gotta, you gotta show them, you know what I mean? Like, take the cool factor away.
Most of the people that are using drugs that are living on the streets, like there's usually a correlation between drug use, mental illness. If you're living on the streets, right, the two things tend to be, the Venn diagram's almost a circle. I assume there are people that can recreationally use just about any drug. I don't think that it's something that we want to say, oh, hey, it's actually okay to use heroin. Right. It's way too easy to overdose. Something like heroin or, any other drugs that are like opiates and stuff, you can stop your heart if you
so
use them and stuff. So I think that, granted, this guy, Dr. Hart, he did use heroin and it was recreational, and he survived, and I don't think that he's on it now anymore. He was on Joe Rogan and talked about his experience. He wrote a book about it. Yep. And so that's all well and good, but I don't think that the average heroin user does have that ability. Look, I used to drink a whole ton. I used to drink as much as any other alcoholic that you'd know, and I just stopped. It wasn't an actual issue for me to stop. That being said, that isn't the case for most people. If you're drinking a lot, wake up, get drunk till you pass out, get up again, get drunk, doing that consistently, most of the time that ends up killing people. Yeah. Right? Like you can't, most people can't control.
I've gone in and out of phases of addiction with weed, particularly weed, a little bit of alcohol, but it's like, unless there's a purpose, if there's a purpose to stop, I stop immediately. I don't need it. I never needed it, but if there's no reason to stop, I'm like, well, if I can keep going and keep using this thing and keep succeeding, then I don't need to stop it. But like, if there's like shit hits the fan, pardon my, like immediately, all that stuff's out the window.
Always swearing.
Poop hits the fan. Yeah, what a nasty phrase anyway.
I agree with what you're saying, but it's like having the access to it too. And I think a lot of these people that are, using heroin and cocaine and all this stuff to an excess would do that with any substance. Like some people use food, some people do other things, like whatever it is. They just have something wrong in their life and they're using a substance to kind of fill in those gaps. That's a whole different story.
What do you guys think about cocaine in general? I don't know if you guys have much experience. I've taken it like 5 times in my life. I would never take it. It's nasty. It's so concentrated. That's the biggest part, because I have a coca leaf where they in South America, they'll put a little tobacco in like a leaf and they'll stick it up in their lip and they'll just kind of suck on it, and you get the buzz, but you also get the tobacco. It's nothing like
Coca-Cola,
cocaine.
Right?
You've tried the cocoa leaf?
Yeah.
Because they have like cocoa tea that I think is way less potent than cocaine, because they're adding like gasoline and all kinds of weird stuff to cocaine. I remember I went down this rabbit hole with cocaine specifically. I think the deeper issue is that there's a meaning crisis and a purpose crisis. Mm-hmm. So when people lack purpose and meaning, they resort to vices. And then, yes, there's probably a degree of genetics where you're more predisposed to being an addict. And so if you're already predisposed to be an addict, but you don't have anything to redirect that to something constructive, productive, music, art, building a business, then you can slide into seasons of addiction.
See, I think that's probably the best argument for keeping it illegal, because there's a lot of people, especially nowadays, as we have this crisis of meaning, like people really, religion is on the rise here in the United States, but I don't think that there's ever been a time in human history where there have been more people that are agnostic or atheist. Right. And without family, without the kind of things that religion offers, without the things that community offers, you end up with a lot of people that kind of don't have a lot of meaning. And I think that if you were to introduce, if you legalize drugs, specifically drugs that are very dangerous for you, I think you end up with more bad results than you do good. Nowadays, you see kids, a lot of young guys that are just kind of retreating from society. They're going into playing video games, smoking pot all the time, watching too much porn, and I think you'll only see those kind of behaviors compound if you were to have something like heroin being illegal.
Well, I think in California, weed is basically legalized, and we've definitely seen spikes of petty crimes, spikes of these sorts of things when you decriminalize something. And I understand, I don't want people going to jail for decades for weed. Like, that's stupid as well. Yeah. At the same time, though, when you destigmatize something, then you're totally right. Then the young person who doesn't quite understand that success and starting a family and building a business and having a stable income and having a purpose takes decades and not weeks.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? They're going to wake up, smoke weed, play video games, hang out, and waste away their most crucial years of their life, which is 18 to 25. When you should be building the foundation, you're getting stoned and playing video games all day. I'm using very broad generalities, but there is something to that. And so in California, the weed now, because of the dispensary, is more potent, and you start seeing the correlation between weed use with people who might have schizophrenia tendencies in their line. And I personally know multiple people that cannabis use triggered schizophrenia because they were predisposed to it genetically.
Yeah, they started changing weed over the last 20 years or something where it's like 29% THC, and they strip all the CBD out of the leaf or whatever. And it's like, bro, the CBD, the cannabinol, is like the healing aspect of the plant. If you remove that and you just give them the hyperstimulant, the psychoactive stimulant, of course they're going to have like heart palpitations and psychotic breaks and shit. So like, that's that. So it's almost like a different plant at that point.
Well, this is where I'm going to agree to disagree. I don't think that taking the access away helps. Like those people are still going to seek that stuff out. They're going to find it. I grew up in Chicago. Weed was illegal. Mushrooms were illegal. Cocaine was illegal. Guess what? Everyone still got it. They just had to pay these guys more money, like this guy wedding here.
The problem was
like,
that
it's just the way it is.
Do you remember the DARE program in the 80s?
Yeah, it didn't work.
Well, what it did was it put weed and heroin and cocaine all together. So when you find out weed is like a kind of a gentle psychoactive plant, and then you're like, whoa, are they lying to me about all these other ones? And then that's the gateway. But if you can educate people about marijuana, the plant, and it's a completely different thing than cocaine and heroin, like opium and all these crazy fentanyl. It's like, dude, this.
Yeah, but the DARE project, I think, fundamentally failed because it was literally the nerdiest thing that kids saw to say,
wasn't
hey,
cool.
Get off of drugs. And it was the dorkiest thing. And guess what the kids saw? They're like, wait a minute, the biggest nerds I know are telling me not to do something. I'm going to want to do it more.
Look, I have never done cocaine and never done heroin or anything like that. And I've been around plenty of that stuff in my life, touring in a band. You see basically everything that you could possibly want I've had offered to me and been around, and I never did. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else. I can't speak for, what anyone else's life is like. But just because you're around it doesn't mean that you're going to do it. And again, I think particularly to your point, if you feel like you have a fulfilled life or you have a goal in your life, something that you're after, you're far less likely to do that kind of stuff.
Let me just add this. As someone that my mother's an alcoholic. I come from a ton of alcohol abuse. Soviets loved to drink their vodka.
Oh, yeah. No way.
Yeah. And I would also say that in my own life, I experienced SA as a kid, and that did a number on me in terms of pornography and all that sort of stuff. The way addiction, the most linear way to fight addiction is twofold. One, you remove it by creating friction, and two, you replace it with something better. Yeah. And so I understand what you're saying, and I used to believe it, but I think when you remove, as a society, we're embracing this thing and we're making it cool and we're making it more potent, the more friction you can create for general people, I actually think the better. But you have to give them something better. You have to give them something to replace that, meaning, purpose, God, career, something to replace that. And that's the issue. And so for me, if I'm looking at my own struggles and having experienced that, I have to have friction on my phone so I don't access stuff that I shouldn't be looking at. And I'm constantly trying to create friction for the bad things. Don't have junk food in the house. Don't have snacks in the house. And create easier pathways for the good things. I got a gym in a tough shed. I got access to the Bible all the time. I have access to accountability and friends. So that's the I think that's the balance with addiction as a whole.
And just my argument is making it legal makes it less cool. Like making it accessible makes it, when it's not accessible and it's rare, that's when it's cool.
I don't agree. I'm not a reverse psychology. I was just like, my parents said it was bad, don't do it, so I believed them.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.